I think that our discussion tonight can show a path out. So it's not only about who we elect as President of the United States, although certainly each person running for president should and must be asked, what is their position on these constitutional questions? What kind of conduct would they assure would be obtained under their administration? What would they expect the right to do as President of the United States? To conduct a war based on lies, to be able to spend money without the approval of Congress, to be able to issue signing statements that would contravene established constitutional principles? What would be the position of someone who would be President of the United States? Would they attempt to move forward in the Bushian approach towards a unitary president, which would also be called in other places a monarch? So for those of you who are here, and for those who are at home watching this is an important moment in American history. We look back in history and we can imagine, as we've seen and are said here, the founders coming together in those great moments of debate. But let me tell you, this is no less serious and sacred a moment in the history of our country. And I'm proud of all of you that you have the awareness and the integrity and the heart and the courage to ask the questions that have to be asked, because sometimes it is the question, just asking the question, that can save the republic. Thank you very much.
Well, as Dennis generously said, I'm John Nichols, and I'm a journalist, and I don't endorse candidates for president. I've not come to endorse Dennis Kucinich for president. I think that he makes too good a case for himself to have a requirement of someone else to do so. But I will say this: I read in the National Telegraph yesterday that the average household in New Hampshire received 70 pieces of paper so far from candidates in this campaign.
Oh my God. Negative
mailings, positive mailings, everything you can imagine from all the different candidates. I come tonight to speak only of one piece of paper. Our tattered, battered, and shredded Constitution. And I come to tell you, patriots, that you are right. The document is under assault. It has been attacked. It has been undermined and rendered irrelevant in the eyes of our Congress and the executive branch. And yet I do not fear. I do not fear, because there are citizens like you who will come out on a Saturday night in Manchester, New Hampshire, when there are so many other things to do, so much political
all the way
theater
from Rhode
about
Island.
us. You will come here to hear a candidate say, I don't want to tell you to vote for me for president. You notice that you didn't get an appeal for a vote here. Maybe that's something we should remind you to do more often. But he's got somebody saying, I think there's something more important than a presidential election. I believe that when the Constitution is in crisis, the founders would tell us our first order of business is to restore the system of checks and balances, restore separation of powers. Then we can worry about who holds the office. Now, I want to take you back for just a moment to 1787 and tell you that when the founders of this republic wrote the Constitution, they made no mention of corporations.
Did they even exist back then, corporations?
They didn't mention Walmart. They made no mention of corporations. They made no mention of a specific church or a specific religion. They made no mention of the Iowa caucuses. And I'm sure this was an omission, but they also made no mention of the New Hampshire primary. Why? They made no mention of conventions. They made no mention of political parties. They didn't even say when we should elect a president. They weren't worried about that. They figured we could get our business arrangements in order, we could even get our faith in order, we could even figure out how to pick a leader, but they were very, very worried that we might forget for a moment that the only way to maintain a system of checks and balances, the only way to guard against monarchy, which they had just given their lives and their fortunes to upend, was the power to impeach, and thus they included 6 separate references to impeachment in the Constitution. No mention of corporations, no mention of political parties, no mention of a state religion, but 6 separate references to impeachment. It was the message in the bottle. It was the signal to you, citizens. Your job is to make sure that members of Congress impeach. Don't wait till the next election. When a president has sinned against the sacred order of the Republic, you move to impeach at that moment. You do not wait for an election. And so...